We're back. Week 6 waiver wire pickup show. Myself, Luke Reimer, next to Ashton. Um, odd, odd week of comebacks. I guess you could kind of call it. Maybe week of comebacks, week of upsets, week of odd fantasy football. Right? It kind of, and I don't know, Ashton, how it went for you, but this week for me, it went the way of I had a big lead going into the witching hour of the first games, and then I lost the lead, and I had to go with the theme and come back in a couple of leagues and make it all the way back, and ended up winning a couple of the leagues that way. But I think another kind of big story this week, right, is another round of injuries. Like injuries feel like they're just decimating everyone right now. I guess when we kind of break it down, this is kind of how every year goes, and it's the teams who adapt, right, end up kind of winning a championship here. But I want to start the show off by just telling you a draft that I had in one league, and crazy. So Malik Neighbors first pick came back with Bucky Irving, came back Tyreek Hill, came back Joe Burrow, came back Amari and Hampton.
Wow. It's about
So
as bad as it gets.
yeah, so I'm sitting like 2-3 in that league, and I can't imagine I'm getting any more wins than 2 this year. So I guess that's kind of why we're here, right? For waiver wire pickups. We're going to tell you who to pick up in case you have the unfortunate route that I do. But Ashton, any big takeaways? Anything? Any big? Do you hit any parlays? Anything with fantasy football? Anything with gambling that you hit this week?
Yeah, I actually had a pretty solid week at the book. Hit a couple bets Sunday, hit some bets Saturday on college football, hit some bets Monday as well. Had a really good Monday night football, actually. Hit 5 or 6 straight bets.
Nice.
I hit one parlay in there. Was one Drake May completion away from hitting another big one on Sunday Night Football. That's how it goes. DFS, pretty solid. Played about $100, won like 120, so break it even plus. I was really live, maybe about midway through the early window. I was like top 50 in a tournament that was like 7,500 payout at the top, but I just ran out of steam. I had like I don't even remember what I had at this point. I think I had Justin Fields naked with like some. I know I had Devon A. Chain and JT. I think where I went wrong on that team was I think maybe I had Tyler Warren as well at tight end. I don't remember where I went wrong, but I ran out of steam. I played a lot of Woody Marks and Texans defense kind of correlation this week. Correlate the running back to the defense if you think the game's going to be a blowout, and it was, but Woody just kind of didn't. Hey, he scored 2 touchdowns for us last week. Let's send him to Siberia. No big deal. All in all, I can't complain too much. Had a decent week at the book.
Good. Yeah, and I think kind of a pickup that and let's just get right into pickups, but a one that kind of like little not flew under the radar, but I feel like a lot of people weren't really talking about because we didn't really know the status of Jimmy Hubbard at the time, but it was Rico Dowdle, right? He gives us the first 200-yard rushing game of the season. I think he's sitting at like 58% ownership. I imagine that probably balloons up to 80 to 85%. So Ashton, I guess the first question off the bat, like Rico Dowdle has to be owned, right? Again, I like that we put things in terms of fab just to give kind of an estimate, kind of to give a valuation on these players. But Rico Dowdle, is he a priority number one? Is he a guy you're going out, you're spending a ton of fab on? Like he's a guy that you want on your team, especially if you have, right, an Amari and Hampton or a Bucky Irving or any of these running backs that went down, right?
I think if Chuba was going to be out for an extended period of time, you dump on him, you go ahead and grab him. But we don't really know what Chuba's injury, status looks like. I haven't seen anything recently that adds to his. They came out a couple days ago and said he was day to day. I haven't seen anything new since then, so who knows what his status looks like coming into this week. But they've got a pretty good matchup once again against the Cowboys coming up for the Panthers. So that's, if you want to play narratives, that's a revenge game for Rico Dowdle. The Cowboys kind of told him, hey, we don't really want you anymore. We're going to go run it back with a bunch of other dusty veterans, and one of them turned out to be pretty good with Javonte Williams. But, if I would go ahead and try and get Rico Dowdle, I wouldn't go too crazy, maybe 10% at the most, just because, Chuba may come back this week and the Panthers go right back to him, and Dowdle's kind of just in a committee at best. So it really just kind of depends on his injury. Now, if you want to just roll the dice and you say, hey, I've got nothing to spend my fab on anyway, or I've got number one priority and I need to make a move, go ahead and grab him. Because if Chuba Hubbard's going to be missing multiple weeks, Rico's already kind of shown what he can do in this offense. He's got another good matchup this week, and then against the Jets the week after. So I think he's definitely worth snatching up, especially with Chuba Hubbard's status still in the air.
Yeah, and I see we got some people coming in. Anyone who has questions, drop them in the chat. We're here to answer them. We're here to help you out. We're here, if someone asks a question and you have an opinion in the chat, feel free to give your answer too. It's just kind of meeting the minds here, and let's help everyone win their week this week. But I'm wondering too with the Rico Dowdle situation, not necessarily situation, but kind of comes out for 208 yards and a touchdown. I wonder how much of that too is based off the fact that like Miami has like maybe the worst defense in the NFL. And I guess I keep saying it, and I think I agree every time I say it. I think about it more. Miami might be the worst team in the NFL. I know that there's kind of been some other teams that haven't really lived up. But I mean, Miami has nothing going for them. Tyreek Hill goes down, the defense goes down. It feels like Mike McDaniel is all but gone right at this point. So moving forward, it kind of feels like if they're not playing a team who has like a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley or a James Cook or a guy like that, like even a second option against Miami is almost worth the pickup every single week, I think, moving forward. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that progresses, at least on our show, moving forward. But one guy who we talked about last week and kind of saw, that rise in picking up at the running back position is Kendre Miller. So it's obvious, right, that Kendre Miller is finally kind of healthy here. He's getting more rushing opportunity than I think Alvin Kamara owners would like to see. Obviously, than Alvin Kamara owners would like to see. And with the Spencer Rattler is not playing horrible football. I'm not going to say he's playing winning football, but he's not playing losing football. And the kind of the reemergent, or not the reemergence, but the coming back here of Taysom Hill. Is Kendre Miller a guy who can theoretically maybe slide into a flex spot if you're in desperate need and be a guy who maybe you get a touchdown, maybe you get 50 yards and a touchdown, and you can win a week off of? Is that it feels like the running back on waivers are kind of depleted right now, so I can't imagine there's many options better than Kendre Miller out there. But to that point, I don't hate picking him up as a guy who, like, if I'm in desperate need, I think you can do worse than Kendre Miller.
Yeah, the big thing with Kendre Miller is we know he's going to be out there. So in back-to-back weeks, he's posted double-digit carries. He had 11 for 65 and 1 against the Bills. He had 10 for 41 against the Giants. He didn't score. He did catch a pass, but he did get that touchdown for you last week. But his snap shares still aren't, great. They have gone up since every week since week 2. Starting week 3, it was 27%, then 31, then 39 last week. I imagine that with the Saints, the situation they're in, they're going to be doing a lot of it's pretty much a lost season. We're in salary cap hell. Let's just see what some of our young guys have got and see what we have versus what we don't. And to me, I know I've said it at least once on the show, but I feel like that could make Alvin Kamara a trade candidate at some point this year. And if that happens, then it's basically Kendre Miller's backfield and no one else to tell him no. Which it sounds so wild that Alvin Kamara, like the world's most consistent fantasy running back, could be on the move, but that's just kind of the world we live in 2025. But I think you can do worse than throwing Miller into a flex spot if you really just need somebody and you hope he falls into the end zone, or maybe you hope that he just kind of starts getting rid of Alvin Kamara a little bit more on the field every week. It wouldn't feel great starting him, but you could definitely do worse.
Yeah, I think if you're picking up Kendre Miller, you're kind of in a spot where let me see some consistency before I'm really relying on this guy, right? You're never gonna go into a week thinking, yeah, I can't wait to start Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller is gonna win my week until maybe an Alvin Kamara is out the door, or we see that kind of that larger role. So yes, I agree with you on that part. And maybe, and let's talk about what you can do worse than Kendre Miller, because I have no confidence in either one of these guys, even though there are ample amounts of opportunity available. It's that Los Angeles Chargers backfield.
Yeah.
So I guess you're kind of choosing. Maybe if you can get them both, I imagine people are going to put in claims for both these guys. But if you're getting both between Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal, to me, at least in both, we have seen very limited of each of them, right? From what we've seen, it kind of feels like to me Kamani Vidal is going to be that that pounder, I guess you can call him. He's going to be the first rushing guy, and Hassan Haskins, I think he's a good pass protector. So I imagine he's a long down guy, but I don't think either one of these provide very much value if you're going out. It feels like it's going to be split, and especially with how bad that Chargers offensive lines looked the last 2 weeks with injuries to both tackles. It kind of feels like the Chargers are just throwing out a skeleton run offense here, and I don't necessarily know that there's much value with it.
No, I tend to agree. I think both of these guys have been in the league long enough and have done basically nothing to the point where we kind of know where they stand. They're end of roster guys, they're special teams guys. So I definitely wouldn't be rushing to stick either of them in my lineup unless I absolutely needed to. I probably lean Haskins just because he is going to get some work. To me, Kamani Vidal is just, I don't really think he's that talented, not to say that Hassan
Agreed.
Haskins is. But something that Henry points out in the article is that Haskins did play his college ball for John Harbaugh at Michigan, or is it which one is it? Jim?
Jim.
Sorry, Jim Harbaugh. You can never tell those guys apart. But he loves his Michigan guys, but we don't really want to throw a jersey color narrative out here, college ball narrative out there. I don't know. I would probably lean Haskins. I don't really think you want to start either of them, but if you really just are scraping the bottom of the barrel and need something, I'd probably lean Haskins.
Yeah, I agree. If you have to pick someone of Haskins, I guess is fine. I just don't necessarily know that I'm going to put like we're at week 6 right now. We kind of have an idea of what I guess maybe not with injuries, but we kind of have an idea of what teams' identities are a little bit right now. And these waiver wire spots, like if you're a 1-4 or a 2-3 team, like these are kind of valuable right now, right? Because there is a little bit of value on the waiver wire. I didn't necessarily know that I want that bogged down by by such a question mark with two to your point, not starting NFL quality running back. I don't want to call them bad players; they're NFL players, right? But not starting quality running back. So yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. Let's hit a team that is kind of all of a sudden they're all of a sudden I'm going to say that and they're 2-3, but I guess tied with the Kansas City Chiefs, right? 2-3, the Carolina Panthers, who were one of those teams that kind of came down to the wire there and took down Miami. I mean, you saw. I don't want to rag on you, but you saw the 30-0 victory over your Atlanta Falcons with the Carolina Panthers. It kind of feels like while there's still a lot of room for improvement, and maybe he's not worth the number one pick that Carolina spent on him. Like Bryce Young has shown that he can at least play football compared to what we saw his rookie year. Then on top of that, we see who I called the worst starting receiver in the NFL last week, Xavier Legette, who kind of registered a good week. No, I guarantee nobody's starting him unless you're in an 18-man league and a 20-man league. But if I guess if you're in need of a quarterback, like again, it kind of feels like a Kendrick Miller situation where I think you can do worse than Bryce Young. And I'm not totally sold on Xavier Legette yet. That touch on the head, that was an incredible throw by Bryce Young.
I'm going to be honest. I watched no football this weekend. I just gambled my face off and hung out with the old lady all weekend. Um, but yeah, I had a strong anti-Legette stance coming out of college. When you're like 23 years old playing against 18-year-olds and you weren't good until you were 23 years old, and then all of a sudden you're posting good stats, it's usually a good indicator that you're probably not that good. Now, that being said, I did try and go out and buy him in a couple of spots in Dynasty in the offseason just because my thesis was Tet's coming in. They're going to get Legette to run a lot more of the kind of like off the line of scrimmage Z stuff. Maybe some kind of stuff that you should see Quentin Johnston doing, some like deep over the middle, deep over the over the top of the defense and underneath and stuff like that. Stuff you can get the ball in his hands, let him run into wide open space. He's definitely not that kind of like number one receiver that's going to go out and run a dig route for you like 30% of the time or anything crazy like that. But I thought that you could have a passable NFL passing attack with Tet, Legette playing flanker, and then Jalen Coker / Hunter Renfrow in the slot. I was like, maybe it opens it up a little bit for him. Maybe he becomes something. So far, I think my original analysis was correct. He did catch a touchdown last week, which surprised the hell out of me. I just assumed that he was dust forever, but crazier things have happened. We've seen guys like Quinn Johnston's a very good recent example who was bad. Everyone thought he couldn't catch, he couldn't play, and then all of a sudden this year he's kind of been playing as the Chargers de facto wide receiver one. So sometimes it takes these guys a little bit to get going. And then on the Bryce Young stuff, he again was another player I wanted to buy in Dynasty just because I thought he might be cheap and had opportunity to get better. I know a lot of people that I play Dynasty with are every week they're just saying, can we stop the Bryce Young experience? Like, he's terrible, he's trash. Like, this is obviously not an NFL quarterback. And fantasy finishes haven't been great, but he does draw the Cowboys next, who have been kind of friendly to NFL passing games and rushing games alike. But I would probably just take a look at your waiver wire and see, because Bryce Young to me would be a very like desperation, like Hail Mary.
Yeah.
He's playing a bad offense or a bad defense in the Cowboys, but just because he gets a favorable matchup doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to perform. We just saw Justin Fields end up having a great fantasy day, but it was one of those deals where he looked pretty terrible throughout the majority of it. If I'm looking at some of my redraft leagues here, and I'm seeing guys on the waiver wire like Sam Darnold. I don't really know why he's on a waiver wire. I probably wouldn't start Aaron Rodgers against the Browns. But I mean, it just kind of depends on what's on your waiver wire. If you've got someone like a Sam Darnold out there, I think Sam Darnold probably needs to go in pretty much anybody's lineup right now. He's playing right now as the QB 14 on the year. He had that kind of dud week 1 against the 49ers, but ever since he's been at least reliable for you. He had that huge spike game this week. I know I played him and JSN stacks and a lot of DFS this week, and they won quite a few. Min cashed some stuff for me, but I think every waiver wire is pretty unique. Just try and see what you've got on yours, and if you've got something that needs to be rostered like a Sam Darnold, go out and grab him. But I think you could do worse than Bryce Young, but he would be my last resort for sure.
I would agree. Nino, what's up? Welcome back. Thanks for being in the chat every week as always. It's nice to see you again. He's having some flex problem. I look at Manar, Isaiah Pacheco, RJ Harvey, who I guess I like is kind of the guy who's had I guess the best year. Not that he's had a great year out of these three, but would it be dumb though using his number one priority for a guy like Kamani Vital, Hassan Haskins, Taylor? I'm guessing Malik Taylor. And flex them going forward. We just talked about the Chargers running back room. Again, I don't necessarily know that either of them are that great of football players. I don't necessarily know that either of them are going to see like a lion's share that we kind of, we're hoping to see out of either, Amarian Hampton or Najee Harris. It kind of feels like a mix moving forward. Like, again, if you can, I wouldn't use the number one priority, like we said. If you can't, if you can get away with, you just need to fill a roster spot. Again, it's all dependent on who you drop. But if you need to, fill a roster spot, I don't hate, picking up one of the guys, sitting on the bench, and just like let's just see what happens this week. Again, this Chargers offensive line is not great. I think that they're probably going, at least moving forward, they're probably going to be playing. They're not going to come out to 14-point leads right away or anything. It feels like it's going to be tied, or they're playing from a score or two behind. So I don't necessarily know how prevalent the run game is moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I think Alex got a great role. I just don't think his offense is there. Pacheco is just kind of, he's just splitting time with late career Kareem Hunt. It's just not great. RJ Harvey, he's just kind of not earned Sean Payton's trust yet. He'll replace J.K. Dobbins at some point. He's just not going to get it done. I think this is Vidal Haskins or maybe Mason Taylor, the tight end for the Jets.
That's what I meant. Malik Taylor.
I think I don't hate Mason Taylor as a shout. Now, I have him in Dynasty, so maybe I'm biased. But, his targets have gone up every week since the start of the season, really. After kind of starting slow the first 2 weeks of the season, only seeing 3 targets. Against Tampa Bay, he had 6. Against the Dolphins, he had 7. And then this week against the Cowboys, he had 12. Caught 9 of those for 67 yards. That's hard. If you've got nothing better than some dusty running backs, throw a tight end in there. It doesn't matter what the position is as long as you're getting points. Now, they are playing Denver this week. Maybe that opens some things up for him because, Garrett Wilson gets the Surtain treatment. But, I like what Mason Taylor's been doing. I think he's a real athletic guy. He's kind of, establishing himself as a second option in the pass game behind Garrett Wilson, which that's not really hard to do when your next best receiver is maybe Alan Lazard.
Oh, no.
Josh Reynolds, I think my buddy Bennett would say Josh Reynolds is better than Alan Lazard. But I wouldn't go so far as number one priority, but I don't hate throwing Mason Taylor in a flex spot if you've got nothing better.
Yep, I would agree with that. I mean, right to your point, at least he's in the field. He probably sees some target with Pat Surtain in there. And plus the Jets don't throw the ball to Garrett Wilson until the last 10 minutes of the game anyways. So someone's got to fill that other 80% of the game. So yeah, I'm cool with that. If we're picking between those three, if you have any other questionable guys on the waiver wire, let us know. I'm interested to see what people's waiver wire looks like because it feels like everyone's a little bit different. Just again, the whole story, right? With these crazy injuries, who's got the handcuffs, who doesn't. So let us know, Nino. I appreciate the question as always. Here's kind of an interesting question. For the same team, are we dropping Amari DiMercato for Trey Benson? which is an interesting one. Trey Benson, I believe, is out another 3 weeks yet. But Ryan, um, I don't hate this immediately because I don't think DeMarcado is a very good running back. I'm almost wondering if, and I assume you don't have Michael Carter, if you have another end of the bench guy that you can drop and plug Trey Benson into your, IR spot if you have it available, and then pick someone else up. But if you don't need DeMarcado, I don't hate this at all.
Yeah, I think that if you don't need to start somebody, you can afford to stash somebody in your IR spot or on your bench for that matter. I don't hate it. I think Benson's probably the most athletic, talented running back left there in Arizona.
Yeah.
Now they are saying it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. That was as of basically a week ago, so probably 3 to 5 now. I think that you stash him. He'll get now his first game back scheduled, I believe, it will be against either the Cowboys or the Seahawks. So not the most daunting challenges defensively. He'll be back in time for the fantasy playoffs. The question will be if he can wrest control away from the ever talented Michael Carter in that time. Yeah, I think if you've got the spot, I'd pull trigger. There's probably nothing better on your waivers that you can just throw in an hour spot, and if he comes back and plays well, then you basically got an RB2 for free.
Yep. Yeah. I think as soon as he comes back, he's slotted right back into that RB1 in this offense. And an offense that kind of needs a running back to roll a little bit to get Kyler Murray going, who Arizona needs to move on from Kyler Murray. That's a different story. I think they have some other problems to work on too. But for this run game to get going, they need a solid running back. They need a good run game. So Trey Benson is the guy. And that reminds me, bringing up Trey Benson, if for any reason, like a guy like George Kittle is out there, he should be back shortly. That should be your number one priority pickup. So check out, I know, right, a lot of waiver wire pickups. They sort by kind of projected points. So if scroll a little bit, see if there's any worthy IR guys that you can pick up and hold them for a week or two to pick up, because I think that's definitely worth it. We got another one from Nino here, keeping us updated. Quite literally just those guys. Rashard Smith is gone. Kendra Dowdle, obviously, all Cardinals running back. Only interesting one besides the three is Jalen Coker. So that's an interesting one. Because talking about the Panthers pass game, and now that you bring it up, I still think I'm going Taylor because, again, with Leggett, with the Panthers winning, not looking great, but winning against a bad Miami defense, how much does that really play into when they have to play an actual, good football team? I don't like Coker over any of those guys. Do you have any strong opinions on Jalen?
I think he's a good player. I just don't know if I would rather throw him in there over like Mason Taylor, just because I think his role is going to be good. He's going to be running as like the for sure tight end one for the Jets. The Jets are playing some pretty bad football. They're going to be in pretty positive game script for him, at least for the majority of the season. Another case, if Coker's still on IR, pick him up if he's available. Maybe he comes out and he starts earning targets like he did towards the end of last year, and he still keeps that chemistry with Bryce Young, and maybe he's a smash. But I think that if you ask me to pick one to start, I'm going to say Taylor, but I don't hate picking up Coker as well. Just check through your IR, because you never know what an owner who, maybe they had George Kittle get hurt week 1 and they just kind of tilt and dropped him. I have a league where I already had Trey McBride. George Kittle sit on my waiver wire. I'm like, I'm not going to not pick up George Kittle, because when he's healthy, I'm just going to start 2 tight ends and play bully ball. That's all I'm going to do. Because,
right.
If I can flex George Kittle, is he really going to be – am I really going to have a flex better than George Kittle? Probably not. In that league, at least. I know I don't. My team's pretty bad. But yeah, I think my sentiment there is, keep starting Mason Taylor if you can. If you can grab Coker too, just slap him in your IR. It never hurts to put someone in your IR. It's just a free roster spot.
Yeah. And let's keep it let's keep talking about how we're in the year 2021 with Javonte Williams and J.K. Dobbins kind of being the guys. Another quarterback that we didn't mention, Sam Darnold's out there. Is Mac Jones anything? Right, we kind of saw him put together a solid week against a solid Rams defense. With Brock Purdy kind of being listed as week to week now, it kind of feels like Mac Jones is still in line for a week 6 start here. This is a guy that Kyle Shanahan wanted to draft. This is a guy that Kyle Shanahan kind of single-handedly tanked Trey Lance's career because he was pissed off that they drafted him instead of Mac Jones. So he finally has his guy, and it seems to be working so far. So, right, if you're a Lamar owner, if you're a Joe Burrow owner, and you've kind of been playing this, streaming quarterback game, again, I think there are worse options out there than Mac Jones, right? With the skeleton crew at receiving, I mean, Panthers beat the Rams, who I, for whatever my money's worth, are one of the better teams in the NFC, are definitely a Super Bowl contender. I can see something similar again moving forward, right? We've kind of seen this where these castaway early picks have found new teams, right, and have kind of succeeded a little bit, right? We've seen Sam Darnold, we've seen Geno Smith with the Jets, we've seen Daniel Jones now in Indianapolis, and Sam Darnold in Minnesota and Seattle. Feels like Mac Jones could be a guy like this, right?
Yeah, it kind of gives me. I'm not going to say to the same extent because they're definitely not similar players, but it kind of gives me vibes of what Baker Mayfield had going for him before he landed with Tampa Bay. He was kind of thrown to the wayside. The Browns, shipped him off to Carolina. Carolina was starting Sam Darnold over him, lest we forget. And, he catches a red eye basically to Los Angeles and starts a game for the Rams on basically no practice time, goes out and wins the game, leads I think it was like a 98-yard game-winning drive with basically just learned these guys' names. He doesn't even know the offense, but essentially saved his career. And I think to a lesser extent, I think Mac could be doing something similar. I mean, he's not putting up huge statistical fantasy weeks for you. I mean, he's playing well. I take that back, actually. I was looking at his projections, not his actual fantasy points. Blunder on my part. So, I mean, he's posted 25 plus in 2 of his starts, put up 15 against the Cardinals. So, I mean, still not killing you on that day, but I wouldn't be shocked at all just in the long term to see Mac Jones, after this year's up with the 49ers, go out and get a bag from somebody who needs a quarterback. Maybe the I don't even know. Maybe the Browns decide they want a little bit of Mac Jones action. I have no clue. It remains to be seen what they have with Dylan Gabriel and Shador Dash over there, but I think that, Mac's been playing well. I think he's probably got at least one more start. I really think that the goal here is going to be not rush Brock Purdy back. They kind of had to do that once already, and he played okay. I know he didn't have a great statistical day as far as like turnovers and stuff goes, but he didn't kill you in fantasy. He put up 21 points against a pretty tough Jags defense, or at least we thought they were tough. And then, Mahomes has been a dynamite for fantasy this year. If you managed to snag Mahomes, after the elite quarterback run, obviously, he's been great for you. That was a stance I had going into the year. Is like I think Mahomes is going to have a good bounce back. I think he's finally got some talented receivers, and of course, we haven't seen him with Rashee Rice yet, which is the scariest part.
Right.
That offense is going to be nuts whenever they get Rice back. I'm glad about my Rice shares that I've been holding on to. I think if you need one more or two more maybe spot starts, Mac Jones is not a bad pickup. They're playing Tampa Bay this week. We just saw Sam Darnold tear them to shreds on Sunday in what was probably a wild game. I'm kind of sad I didn't get to watch it. And then, of course, they get to play my Falcons probably after they get knocked off by a very pissed off Bills team on Monday Night Football the following week. And that, their defense isn't – they had that one spike performance against J.J. McCarthy, and then ever since they've just kind of been whatever.
Yeah.
I think Mac's a fine pickup if you need a couple weeks out of a quarterback.
Yeah, and to give people a little insight, like I'm probably he's probably the number one guy I'm going to talk about with tonight when I write up the quarterback stream article. I love the matchup this week. Again, playing with a skeleton crew, but I mean, numbers don't lie. I talk about a lot of my stuff in fantasy football is talking about consistency. I think we've seen it from Mac Jones. Like again, Shanahan got his guy with Mac Jones. He can finally, mold an offense around the quarterback that he's kind of always wanted since he had Matt Ryan, right? So I think there's a lot to like moving forward. Again, I don't know, how much does moving forward mean with Brock Purdy on this week to week. But I think as long as Mac Jones is not losing the games. I mean, even beating the division rival in the Rams, which hey, maybe that plays a factor come the end of the year when San Francisco starts to get healthy again. I think you continue to ride it. And I'm happy you brought up that Baker thing. I bring it up a lot on these shows. I hated Baker Mayfield. I did not like him in college. I did not like him, when he came in. But you go to the Rams on like 2 days into a Sean McVay offense and you lead a 98-yard touchdown drive. That was sick. That got me in on Baker Mayfield. No, I'm all in. I love the guy. So it's always one of my favorite things to talk about with football. But Ashton, give you a name who's currently only owned in 48% of leagues, which feels like he should probably be now owned in 100% of leagues. And that's Miami Dolphins tight end and 25-1 odds comeback player of the year, Darren Waller. Now, are we betting that? I mean, that probably feels like probably not right, but that feels like the best, value given a 2
If
week
you want
stretch.
to get contrarian and say maybe Daniel Jones gets hurt or Pumpkins at some point in the season, go for it. But as long as Danny Dimes is healthy, I'm not touching anybody for comeback player of the year but Danny.
That's fair.
Um, yeah, man, I had Darren Waller. I picked him up in one or two dynasty leagues that are tight end premium, and just late, right when the season got rolling around, it was still kind of training camp before week 1. I ended up dropping him because I got him for free anyway. I just dropped him back to waivers because I needed the roster spot for somebody else, and then I never got back around to picking him back up. And the guy that I played this week in that league picked him up, and he scored 2 touchdowns on my head and dropped me down to 2 and 3, which did not feel good. Yeah, I mean, if you need help at tight end, he's scoring touchdowns. He's putting up big fantasy weeks pretty consistently, which is kind of what we saw from him before he kind of forgot that he loves football, right? Before he kind of decided to do a side quest and become a rapper for a little bit.
One of the worst rap songs I've ever heard.
So good. But, he only played 28% of the snaps against the Jets in week 1. So he was really efficient with his opportunities right. Now, this week, he kind of got that big bump back up to almost 60%. Caught all 5 of his targets for 78 yards on the touchdown. I think he's going to be a big part of this offense, especially now that Tyreek Hill is gone. I think that they're going to need someone else to lean on besides Jalen Waddle in the pass game. And don't get me wrong, I like Malik Washington. I like what he does from a gadget perspective, but I think Waller kind of gives you more of an option kind of up the seam and in the middle of the field that Malik Washington's not really going to bring.
Yeah, I think too, right? We kind of saw Miami last year when they got down to the red zone. They kind of had a couple packages, right? We saw Devon Achane catch a ton of passes in the red zone, score touchdowns that way. We also saw Jonnu Smith catch a ton of passes, at least at the end of the year, and score a bunch of touchdowns that way. It kind of feels like when Miami's been getting down to the red zone this year, that Devon Achane is obviously is the defense's key, right? Don't let this guy beat you, let someone else beat you. I think now that they kind of have that receiving weapon back at the tight end position, they can, throw those pop passes. They can throw those screens. They can throw those flat routes to the tight end to help open up Devon Achane. And I think Darren Waller is the guy for that, right? He's not a tight end more that he's a receiving tight end. He's not going to go and block anyone. So I think anytime he's on the field, right, he should be, at least the third option in the pass game for receiving. And with, Tua's, showing he has a propensity to, look to tight ends, especially in these short yardage situations. And hey, Mike McDaniel's probably coaching for his job here, right? Like, we always say, make things easy and run the football. Mike McDaniel, his thing, right, has been these, stupid ass screens that, just throw it out and let a guy run. So is Darren Waller involved in that? I think more than Malik Washington he is.
Yeah, he could be. I still think Waller's role is going to be more of like a Jimmy Graham-esque around the goal line kind of deal because, like you were saying, he does have that 6'6" frame that's going to be really tough to defend. You've got a guy that tall that can jump. You just kind of throw it towards the crossbar of the goalpost and let him go get it. But I still think for some of the more gadgety stuff, I like Achane, and I think Malik Washington's going to take some of that away. I don't really know how much screen game Darren Waller's got left in him, but if he keeps scoring touchdowns, I mean, that's really all you can ask for out of the tight end position is go catch me a couple passes and maybe you get in the end zone, especially if you're not touting, a McBride or a Bowers, somebody out there, or at this point, a Tyler Warren. But yeah, I think Darren Waller is a definite pickup. Him and the next guy on this list, I have him in Dynasty. Had him in Dynasty, was so sad that I sold him before the season because I was trying to offload players. But Theo Johnson, he caught 2 touchdowns as well this week, and he's kind of showing a really good kind of connection with Jackson Dart so far.
Yeah, let's talk about Theo Johnson for a second. He was the last guy I was going to bring up. So again, if anyone with any questions, please drop them in the chat. We're here to help you out. We're here for you guys to help us out too, because as I stated off the top, I have my first 5 picks in the league are all out this week, and I don't even know what's going on. So that, I mean, I might have to chalk this up to an already lost season. Not going to do that yet. I mean, we're not giving up. We're not waving the white flag. But Theo Johnson,
never.
Yeah, never. Theo Johnson is an interesting one. To your point with that kind of, it seems like there's a budding connection with Jackson Dart. That's kind of always been the thing, right? With rookie quarterbacks who, maybe need to develop a little bit as a passer is, just, if you're in doubt, just throw it to your big safety blanket over the middle of the field, whether he's covered or not. And it seems like Theo Johnson's kind of filled that role. We talked about it last week, but this wide receiver core for the Giants, Malik Neighbors is out. Darius Slayton got hurt last week. It kind of feels, San Francisco 49ers-esque, where kind of just running a skeleton crew out there. And it seems like, Theo Johnson is the one who is becoming the beneficiary of these injuries and this weak quarterback throwing ability, kind of a really inconsistent run game. Feels like Theo Johnson is the most consistent guy on this offense, with how gross that sounds.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good, but I mean, I've always kind of thought the profile was good. He's just an athletic guy, another one of those freak athletes from Penn State. I don't know what they keep feeding those guys up there, but probably steroids. Who knows? But yeah, man, he's a crazy athlete. I just always wanted to see, last year, he had some solid games. He didn't really pop much at all. He was hurt late in the year, but he did finish with double-digit fantasy points once or twice. So just showed some signs. He's kind of breaking out here a little bit, especially with limited options otherwise in the pass game. I think that, throw him on your bench. I mean, if he keeps scoring like this, obviously he's got a tough draw these next 2 weeks, but next 3 weeks, because whoever made this schedule has the Giants playing Philly, then at Denver, then at Philly. Why are we playing the Eagles twice in 3 weeks? That's just disgusting. But, I think that he's a good athlete, solid player. If he starts learning how to play football and gets a good connection going with Jackson Dart, Jackson's a much different player than Russ. Russ is kind of like I just want to take deep shots on the boundary to my guys, which in some ways that helps some players and hurts all other players. But Jackson Dart, he's not afraid to rip it in the middle. And, I don't know if anyone else in here ever watches Gruden's QB camp, but his episode with Jackson Dart's pretty entertaining. They're watching game film, and it's a clip of him when he's, Ole Miss is playing Georgia. He scrambles out of the pocket left, and Gruden's talking to him. He's like, all right, now what am I telling you to do here as a quarterback? He's like, you want me to slide coach? And he's like, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to run his ass over. And he trucks the guy. Sick. It's awesome. So I've seen that in so many TikTok edits. But, it's kind of funny that Ole Miss has just kind of had this string of saucy white boy quarterbacks going back to Chad Kelly, if you remember that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day. I got cracked up a minute ago because, another Ole Miss legend, DeMaurier Stringfellow, if you guys know that name.
The name.
But, yeah, I think, Jackson Dart can play. I don't know how good he's going to be long term, but for fantasy, he's going to run, and I think he might take Theo Johnson along the way with him for quite a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm probably going to give my thoughts a little bit more on this guy later this week. But just because you brought up Ole Miss, I've been meaning to bring him up to Zach and Trevor for a while. I just haven't thought about it. Whether you like him or not, I think I'm totally in on Lane Kiffin. I love Lane Kiffin. I think he's an incredible personality. He's an incredible person to be in college football. He's kind of feels like the last of college football is an interesting thing. And I guess it kind of goes with college basketball too, and maybe it's not the case anymore now that NIL's flying around, but there's kind of this dying breed of the coach being the character, the coach, being the central figure, the controversy surrounds the coach. And I think what has always been great about college sports is these grimy, I don't want to make generalizations, but
I know what you mean.
A lot of them are Italian coaches who kind of feel like mob bosses, right? We've seen with John Calipari kind of make a career off of this. Lane Kiffin kind of feels like a dying breed with this, right? I don't care if Ole Miss, and Ole Miss playing good football, by the way, if they're, a horrible team, Lane Kiffin needs to be in college sports, right? Yeah,
more Lane Kiffin's, less Bill Belichick's. Respect to Bill Belichick, but the experiment with him at North Carolina has been kind of a disaster. I can't give too much love to Lane Kiffin as a Tennessee fan. He did us dirty back in the day. I can forgive. I can't forget. So
that's kind of the and I get it. I would, if I was a Tennessee fan too, I agree with you 100%. As an outsider,
stuff is with Derek Dooley, man. Come on. What?
As an outsider, that's kind of the charm to Lane Kiffin, though, is he just goes and fucks over a fan base, and he's still around, still doing his thing, and not giving a fuck about it.
I said it when they made that hire. I said there is not a perfect match of coach to college and college town than Lane Kiffin to Ole Miss to Oxford, Mississippi. Because I don't know how many people in here have ever been to Oxford, Mississippi. There's nothing there except for a bunch of people. There's a lot of kids that go there that are from New York, New Jersey, up north that want to go experience the South in an SEC school, and it's just bars and football, and that's all they got down there. And it's a good time, but if you go too late, you go to the library too late, you're going to pay $100 cover to get in. You're not going to have a good time. You got to get there early, get that wristband.
Yeah, And I guess I don't have any skin in the game. I'm not, I'm not an SEC country or anything. I've always rooted for Mississippi State just because, it feels like everyone just, they're like the New York Jets of the SEC, right? So I don't really love Ole Miss. Again, I just love Lane Kiffin. So I guess Ole Miss is fine moving forward now. But again, before we get out of here, anyone in the chat drop any questions? They don't even have to be fantasy football related. We'll go on and gab for a little bit here. But did you see South Carolina schedule coming up here?
Dude, brutal.
Talk about like the biggest gauntlet in
brutal.
I think for those who don't know, I think they're at LSU, home against Oklahoma, at Alabama.
They essentially played 4 top 10 teams in a row.
Yeah, and then I think they got Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Like that's college football playoff level football coming up for them.
Yeah, it's
for a team that, and you would know better than I would being an SEC guy, for a team that kind of felt like they were really hyped up. I mean, Lenore Sellers hasn't really lived up to what everyone said he's going to be. Like South Carolina feels like they have a chance to I mean, they might be fighting for a bowl game here at this point. So I think all the under wins bettors, I think they're pretty happy about this, right?
Possibly. I think I have some takes here. I don't know how legit LSU is.
Okay.
They're questionable. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. Doesn't matter the year. Texas A&M is literally always questionable. Texas A&M has, ever since they've joined the SEC, they get ranked top 10, they get ranked top 5, and then they lay an egg against somebody. They haven't been reliable since Johnny Manziel, Kevin Sumlin. So I think that they have winnable games against LSU and Texas A&M. I think Alabama could low-key be a winnable game. Alabama's not just some unstoppable giant anymore. They're kind of showing cracks in the armor. Them getting that useless field goal at the end of the game actually cashed their spread for me. That was real
perfect.
Cool. Kalen DeBoer. Shout out Alabama on that one. Their starting quarterback Ty Simpson's actually from just a couple hours north of me. So cool guy. I'm sure his family's good. His little brother's kind of a shithead, but Oklahoma's tough this year. I think Ole Miss is good. Coastal Carolina, they're going to smack Coastal, I think. And then, they always have that big one at the end of the year against Clemson. Those two don't like each other.
Yep.
It's almost to the level of Mississippi State Ole Miss, to reference a couple of teams we've already talked about. The egg ball always gets crazy. Those guys don't like each other. It doesn't matter how good either one of them is. It's always a close game. South Carolina's schedule's brutal, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brutal. I mean, the joke is, SEC, whatever, all the time, but there really is, like, outside of now the new Big Ten, I don't know if there's a more brutal schedule you can get than some of these SEC ones that come across.
So I've grown up in Wisconsin, I guess. If I had to pick a team to root for, I'm not a huge college football guy. I've been playing college fantasy and betting on it, so I guess that's kind of got me into college football, but I haven't had really a strong rooting interest in college football. If I had to pick a team, I guess I would pick Wisconsin. No, that hasn't been great this year. But as a Big Ten guy, and I'm probably going to get some shit for this from Big Ten fans. Like, it kind of feels like this is split into like a Big Ten versus SEC. What's the better conference? The other conference is overrated, yada, yada. I've always loved SEC football. Like that to me, that's what the best teams are. Those are the championships. Those are the championship teams. Again, I guess Big Ten has had the last two, but I don't know. I love SEC football. It's so fun to watch. It feels like, the south part of the country, that's really, that's college football, where I think the northern part is a little bit more professional football.
Sure, yeah.
As an outsider, that's always been fun for me to watch.
Yeah, I think they're just kind of two sides of the same coin, right? Both of them are like, especially with the new teams being added, they're the elite conferences, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no question. Like, the Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore. The Big 12 is like, I'm not going to say they're a joke. They're just kind of a shell of what they used to be.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just, and the AAC is just like,
you get a team.
Or the ACC, excuse me. You've got Miami's been looking good this year. Florida State's looked good in spurts, and Clemson, but outside of that, their conference is really weak. I think that as far as conferences from top to bottom, SEC and Big Ten are up there for sure. Because Big Ten's tough. I mean, it is kind of funny that I had the thought when I was talking about Texas A&M, but they are so much remind me of Penn State.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's the same song and they both play the same song and dance every year. Like, there is one thing you can count on with Penn State every year, and that's they will look great until they play somebody that's good at football, like Michigan or Ohio State, and then they poop their pants. They can't get it done. James Franklin just, he's doing a great job up there, being third or fourth in the Big Ten every year. I'm sure he's getting a good paycheck. So, I mean, you can't really hate on the guy, but Yeah, I don't know. I haven't got too deep into college football this year. I know my fiance asked me when Tennessee and Alabama were playing because that's the one game she wants to watch. Don't ask me why she picked that one. I have no clue. Um, yeah, I mean, it's most of the time I end up watching college football just for dynasty scouting, and this year
For
it's
sure.
looking spooky. I was like excited about this year's draft because I was like, okay, we're gonna have Jeremiah Love, we're gonna have a couple quarterbacks in there that look good, and then all the quarterbacks are kind of looking not so great. like,
Right. I will
um,
just to interject here real quick. To your point about dynasty scouting for college football, I would implore everybody, if you have like a group of buddies that are like big into college football, you're not going to know a lot of people, but play college football fantasy. It is very fun to do. You have like rooting skin in every single game where you don't have to put bets in if you're not into betting every single game. And you get as good of scouting as you'll ever get. I have a buddy who, I guess 2 years ago, when Bucky Irvin was at Oregon, he had him, was awesome for it, and drafted him, in the 4th round in Dynasty for that reason, which is paying off. Another guy had Puka Nacua, who drafted him in the 5th round just because he knew the name from BYU. So it is very fun to do. And if you're a big Dynasty guy, it is, you do get a little, ahead of the game on others who are Dynasty scouting, which again, fantasy football is incredible. I ranked it as the greatest non-necessity in the world. To add that to, your Saturday as well, it's awesome.
For sure, it's just a good time. I'm actually also playing in a college fantasy league this year for the first time, and we're doing it a little different. We're doing like rotisserie style, which I think is a big deal with like MLB fantasy sometimes. So it's throwing me for a loop a little bit. My team's not very good.
Right.
I just I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but hey, I'm having a good time. I get in there, and no matter what league you're in, no matter what fantasy you're playing in, be a good league mate. Check if you get a trade offer, check it, even if it's not good.
Yeah.
If you get, set your lineup, even if you're not like taking it super serious, just set your lineup, be active on waivers. Don't be that guy that, I'll play. And then 2 weeks in, you're 0-2 and you're just like, I don't really care. And you just kind of ghost the league. Like nobody likes that guy.
Right. And just to add one more thing to college football, right? It's so much more forgiving than NFL just because there's 128 teams or whatever. There's always guys available. You can always play a matchup. You can always stream a guy here and there. And one other thing I wanted to talk about before we hop off here, is North Carolina football. I'm a North Carolina basketball fan. I'm a diehard North Carolina basketball fan, which I guess is kind of blasphemous again, being from Wisconsin and really having no allegiance to the University of North Carolina, other than the first basketball game I ever remember is 2005, them beating Illinois, who I hate. Illinois with that Luther had Darren Williams, D Brown team, which incredible team. I hate Illinois. Love Roy Williams. So diehard North Carolina fan. I want Bill Belichick to not win a game because the money is being funneled into the football program right now and is being taken away from the once great college basketball program, which we've been on kind of a downside here. So I am all for Bill Belichick losing games and, hopefully getting out sooner than later.
I know. Agreed. I think that, I think that was more of a name hire that was just kind of generate buzz in the program. And that's cool. Do those things, sell your tickets, do whatever you got to do. But I think at some point you've got to look at your team and go, okay, we're not really – we had a name. The name's not really anything more than a name at this point. And so maybe we need to make a change. It's not a great sign when your coach's girlfriend is in the headlines, maybe more than he is for good things. It's usually not a good – it's kind of giving Bobby Petrino vibes, just not to that.
Shout out Bobby. Another guy who needs to be in college football.
Bobby, hey, he's the interim head coach now at Arkansas.
Yeah,
now that Sam Pittman got fired. So that's awesome. Bobby P's back with the Hogs, baby.
Yep.
You were talking about scumbag coaches earlier, and it's just it's so funny that college football is so rife with like stories of scumbag coaches because you said that in the instant. First thing that came to mind was Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss.
Oh yeah,
Hugh. They caught him with ladies of the night in the hotel room. He said, "No, we were just praying. We weren't doing anything. We were doing a Bible study. That's all we were doing." It's like, okay, Hugh. Yeah, sure you were, but yeah, man, college football. There's nothing better than college sports. I mean, it's awesome. I've even gotten into college baseball recently in a few years.
Agreed.
And I like to gamble on it. I mean, it's cool. It's a little bit more exciting than MLB to me because there's usually a lot more runs scored, so that's cool. Mm-hmm. Doesn't hurt that Tennessee's good, and I try and root for Tennessee in basically anything I can.
Good program to root for.
Yeah, hey, we're cool. We have a very ugly color in the grand scheme of colors, but I love it. Wouldn't trade it for the world. We do have a very annoying fan base when it comes to football that have bad expectations, but
again, annoying fan bases, another incredible part about college sports. Like even more, I hate annoying fan bases in professional sports. But college sports is really because half of them are college kids. The other half are old guys who all they care about is Tennessee football, which is incredible.
I can say I went to the Tennessee Ohio State playoff game last year. It was probably about a good 8-hour drive from where we live, so not too bad. We woke up early, drove down there, got a hotel, went to the game. Tickets were relatively cheap. when I tell you I have not experienced that kind of cold ever. I'm from Tennessee. I've
Yep.
lived here my entire life. The furthest north I've ever been for any extent of time is Eastern Illinois University when I was in college and I was doing film for the football team, which shout out Tony Romo. That's where he went to school. Same thing with Jimmy G. Shout out those guys. Got their jerseys retired up there. That is a different kind of cold that y'all have up there. I was wearing thermal, a hoodie, a shirt over the I was wearing thermal, a shirt over the thermal, a hoodie, and a big like Carhartt work jacket. And at halftime, I looked at my fiance. We're getting drummed. I already know how this story ends, and I'm just and plus the fans were like really rowdy, which didn't really bother me too much. But that was her first experience at a ball game, and I was like, we can do better. So I was like, you want to go to the hotel room? I'm freezing my ass off, and I can watch us get our ass beat from the warm bed.
Right.
And so we did. We went for the first half, and I proudly walked out of that stadium and Ubered back to the hotel and enjoyed the rest of that ass beating in a warm bed.
We got to get you up to a like December, January Lambeau. Yeah, it sucks. The cold sucks, and as a guy who's born and raised, spent my whole life in Wisconsin, it's horrible, but it is so much fun, man. I will say, now that we're kind of approaching the cold season, the worst part about being up here at this point, right, is we get cold and at some point snow from October 1st to May 1st. Like, just
I'd be okay with snow. We get ice, and that's the worst.
Ice is much worse than snow. I agree with you.
We just get ice. If ice is over, you can't go anywhere for like a week because the highway departments and stuff around here aren't built for it. So you kind of have to just sit at the house and wait for it to thaw out.
Right. And that's kind of the issue up here with ice is that they are built for it, but they don't, how do you ever get rid of ice and snow? Everything's open. So you have to go to work and just, there's deer running around all the time. It's crazy.
We've got them down here too, man. Deer everywhere.
Everywhere. The worst. And that might be worse than ice in my mind. Like driving at night is horrible. But yeah, we're getting a cold season. The thing that sucks about the winter up here is I don't mind the cold. I just hate seeing snow on the ground for 7 out of the 12 months. It just ruins my vibe, and it gets so dark. And
it's so funny, the dichotomy, because people that I grew up with in my family around here, that's the only thing they want to say. I just want to see snow for Christmas. That's all I want.
No,
there's been Christmases where I can remember where it's like 70 degrees outside, and you're outside in like shorts and a t-shirt, and you're just like, man, this is crazy. Like it is damn near January of the new year. Like, why is it still so hot? Like I can vividly remember when I was in high school, we went to back-to-back state championships for football, and one year it was like 80 degrees. And hot as all hell. The next year, it was like 15 degrees, snowing with like 30-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah. So the old joke is if you don't like the weather in Tennessee, just wait a minute, it'll change on you. But it gets crazy. It gets wicked down here as far as how much the weather can change in a heartbeat.
Yeah, same thing up here too. And I think with that, I think we kind of touch on everything. I don't know that there's any other guys to mention. Ashton, do you have anyone else you wanted to mention? I guess while I'm here and I guess kind of supporting the team, shout out Milwaukee Brewers. First kind of team that that's not true. I rally around the team every year and I get my heart broken every year. But I love it. This team is awesome to watch. And fuck the Chicago Cubs, scumbags.
I've got a buddy that's a big Cubs fan, and it's
not your buddy's a scumbag, but scumbags.
Yeah, I only recently got into MLB. I think this was my first year actually following baseball, and I just saw a chart on Twitter one night that was like, if you're a fan of this NFL team, this is the MLB team that's most like it. Mine is Pittsburgh Pirates, so we're rocking the Pittsburgh Pirates, baby.
Hell yeah.
We stink. We got Paul Skeens, and that's it. We got Paul Skeens and Libby Dunn. That's what our namesake is right now.
Yep, you got that right. On that note, I think we're out of here. We're back tomorrow. If you're a Green Bay Packer fan, even if you're not a Packer fan, you kind of want to get some insight on three guys who I would say know about the Packers as much as anyone in the world. Tune in tomorrow. Thursday we will be on for kind of get your final questions in before the week starts. For those listening or for those watching and are interested, I don't know if that's a stupid thing that I just said because nobody's really interested. But I just started drinking black coffee, and I'll give an update on that on Thursday. I've had it 8 days in a row now, which I think I'm a black coffee guy. That
was quick. Last week you were like, this sucks.
yeah. I got into it quick. Tune in Thursday for my full thoughts on it. But again, everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for dropping in the chat. If you're watching after the fact, comment on the video. We will get to YouTube comments, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you can find us. We will answer your questions, and we will be back next Tuesday. Hopefully, not talking about as many injuries because as much as I love football, I hate injuries, man.
They're never fun. It's nothing ruins a good fantasy season like seeing some of your favorite guys go down. Thankfully, a lot of my teams haven't been too affected by it so far, but I, definitely feeling for all the people out there that are getting railed by them, such as yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And on that note, Ashton, appreciate you. For Luke Reimer, Flurry Sports, we are out of here. We will see you next Tuesday, a little bit earlier. We had some technical difficulties. We didn't. I had some technical difficulties. We will be back around 8 o'clock. We'll say, not at 8. We'll be around somewhere around 8 o'clock. Peace out and have a good week. Let's